morning, and welcome back to this edition of Straight Off the Bat. It's a show that covers the need to revive, survive, and adapt to new normal of COVID-19. Join us on Thursdays as we speak to individuals across multiple industries who will help you understand financial literacy and education. If you join us from Facebook, smash that follow button and you'll continue seeing content that will help you manage your money. Today, we're discussing mobile banking versus digital banking in Trinidad and Tobago. And I think this is extremely important, especially when a lot of us are trying to avoid leaving our houses for whatever reason. No judgment here. We're good to go. No worries. So today we have the great privilege of speaking to Kwame Blanchfield. He is the Senior Manager, Group Marketing and Communications Manager at Republic Bank Limited. He possesses a master in business administration from Heriot Watt University, and he's also an auto enthusiast. So maybe he can pull his, knowledge about underneath the hood and digital banking. So welcome, Kwame. Good morning.
Good morning, Pauline, and good morning to your viewers on all the online platforms.
Awesome. So we are going to go straight into it because I think based on what we've seen and the back end of these live shows, a lot of people actually watch these shows on their mobile phones. So for the interest of the common man, aka me, what is the difference between mobile banking and digital banking?
Sure, and that's a good question, and a fair one. And digital banking really is any sort of banking you can do using a desktop, laptop, a computer, right? And mobile banking is doing your banking only on a mobile device, right? So basically, that is the difference where mobile banking, you do your banking on this mobile device via a mobile app, an app that is on the mobile device. So your banking app for internet banking may be on that mobile device, your iPhone or your Samsung. So as such, that is considered mobile banking. But digital banking, when you sit home at your desktop or even your laptop or tablet, that is digital banking. So really the difference is in the word mobile, but mobile banking is part of digital banking. So that's the real
And
difference between the two.
great. And I think that's a clear definition. And I think I want to draw some parallels to social media. So for instance, a lot of times you actually can't access certain mobile features. So sometimes I avoid downloading Facebook as much as possible. The app, I actually use it in the browser. And I realize I can't use the direct messenger from the mobile browser. I actually have to download the app. So when it comes to the capabilities of banking, what is sort of the major factors that you can't get in digital banking versus mobile banking? Because I could imagine they require different technicalities, backend, mainframe. What is those sort of the challenge there and the advantage?
Yeah. Because, for example, the mobile banking is really your banking app. If you need to add certain banks require you to, if you need to add a pay, for example, if you need to add a utility service that you want to pay on internet banking and you want to add, let's just say, WASA, you are required to go into the internet banking from a computer. You cannot add that payee from your mobile. Once the payee is added in on your internet banking from the computer, it then pops up on your mobile. So that is automatically translated or replicated into the mobile app. But you have to initiate that payee onboarding on the desktop or on the laptop, not through the mobile device, because of various technicalities with the back end of how these systems are built sometimes. But basically, once you initiate on your desktop through your internet banking, you are able to see all the features on your mobile banking and then do the same sort of banking as you may want to. Certain chat features are a bit more prominent and regular on mobile than on desktops. So you may find you have pop-ups or you have little chats aids to help you along navigating your website or the internet banking journey you're on. You may get little cues, little assistance, little pop-ups to help you guide and navigate that may be a bit more available on mobile than on the core internet banking through a desktop. So there are some subtle variances that you see, and you would have mentioned, like on Facebook, you can do the direct messenger through the mobile, but not on the desktop. And again, that's to promote the usage of the mobile app and the mobile service that they have. So between the banks and the service that are offered, between internet banking that is available on your desktop versus internet banking that is available on your mobile, it's really a subtle difference at times between some of the what we call the service requests that you can do. It need to be initiated. They need to be initiated first on your desktop, and then you see them on your mobile banking.
Okay, so that's some good information, especially when it comes to adding a P, because sometimes we actually had a discussion before about power of attorney, and those types of things are important when people are, of a certain age and getting. I mean, none of us are coming out of this alive, so we have to put things in place to make sure that there is a transition when we move on. And in so doing, I want to have a discussion around folks who may be watching this, going, well, you ever see grandmother, she's like, what is this? I can't see this. Why is this? It's just like the screen is too small. So for
Yes.
those who are in that position where there's some features in the digital banking that requires the authentication through your phone, what are some sort of help hand holding situations that that person could rely on when it comes to activating their digital banking?
Yeah. So some tips that the persons could rely on is basically, um, have confidence in yourself, in terms of you can do this, right? So digital banking coming over to mobile banking, it's just making it much more portable for you and much more convenient for you. But generally, it tends to have more or less the same interface, but definitely the same outcomes for you. So if you want to transfer money, you can do that both on digital banking or on mobile banking. Some general rule of thumbs or rules of thumb we like to promote is that, keep your passwords to yourself. Um, Make sure that you regularly change your passwords when they are prompted, depending on if the app requires that. Um, Also ensure that your phone is always charged as much as possible, given the fact that it is mobile banking and you may want to conduct some, mobile banking, pay your credit card or transfer funds or even pay someone through interbank transfer. You really want to keep your phones as charged as much as possible, and also be mindful of who is behind you, who is around you in your space, particularly when you are authenticating yourself and doing your internet banking. So just as how you would probably kind of hide your screen, you'll probably want to ensure that you're doing your banking while it's mobile, but you're still in a relatively private environment where you don't have anyone kind of smoothing over your shoulders, as it were. Um, and to get a phone that is robust and allows you to have all of the features that can come with some of the new um, attributes of mobile banking. So, for example, there are certain bank apps, Republic Bank is one, where you can sign in with your face. So no longer do you have to put in your user ID and password. You hold your phone up to your face and it takes a snap of your face, and it matches that with the record of the face it has in memory. If your phone doesn't have a camera, you wouldn't be allowed to do that. So as much as possible, ensure that your mobile phone as well has all the latest bells and whistles, because the mobile apps are becoming more and more complementary to some of the functions of the mobile phones. And as such, you'll be able to use your biometrics to sign into your phone as well as to your internet banking on your mobile device. So those are some of the things I would recommend to persons.
I think the conversation around the mobile is definitely important when it's something that we use every day. And a lot of us, tend to use it more from a entertainment perspective. But when we're looking at managing our finances, it could be a little tricky because you're thinking, okay, all this information is out there. Somebody has my facial recognition. Well, it's interesting because Google, for instance, has Google Photos and it has the ability to recognize people's faces. So when it comes to somebody who may be a little bit, I'm not sure because all this information's out there, the bank will have my facial features. What say you to that person?
What do I say to that person? That's the world we are living in. And if there are concerns around security, safety, my phone could easily be hacked. Someone could, take a photo of my face, as you're saying, there are Google photos. There are other fail there are other redundancies set in place by the banks. So that's not the only way in which we try to protect persons, but there are things like alerts, so that even if someone were able to access your device and do unauthorized transactions, once you are signed up for alerts, you actually see every transaction done on your debit or credit card. You get an email. So there are times, Pauline, when I would have done transactions, and before I reached home, I would have done like 4 transactions. I remember 2, but I couldn't remember the last 2. And then I'm seeing these things on my email, and I'm like, did I do a transaction for $300? And then I'm like, oh yes, I did this. I did purchase this. So these alerts really do that, right? They alert you to a transaction. It doesn't mean that the transaction is fraudulent. It could be a legitimate authorized transactions, but at least it gives you the confidence to know that if there are any purchases or transactions being done on your card, you get an email almost instantaneously. So, do we stop drive cars because cars are now faster? Or do we stop drive on the roads because the roads are not as safe as they used to be? Or do we stop go out because the place is not as safe as it used to be? We probably curtail our activities, but we still go out. And so it is with technology. The technology is changing. We have to adapt and change with the technology, and also understand what are the mechanisms to safeguard ourselves. It's not to say that the technology doesn't do anything for me, and it doesn't safeguard me, it exposes me. That's not entirely true. We need to understand how we need to adjust our own behavior as well, right? In understanding some of the technologies that we have adopted. Yeah, you you would not, for example, um, renovate your house and have a electronic gate, for example, but you're still coming out of your vehicle to push the gate. Right? You wouldn't do that. So it wouldn't be that you have these mobile devices and you're not adjusting your behavior. You're not putting a password on your phone. So you get your phone, your new mobile device, it's nice and shiny, but you don't want to do the hassle of putting on a password. Guess what? That's one compromise right there. And it's not necessarily the bank's fault, it's your fault at that point in time. Yeah. So it's what do you do to make sure you have done all that you can do to safeguard yourself, because there are mechanisms, there are redundancies, there are things that the banks would have put in place to ensure that if there's a dispute in the transaction, we are able to identify that as quickly as possible. But more importantly, giving the card holder, the customer, the assurance to know first if a transaction is done on their card. They will know. And these are some of the things that the banks have done. And it's pairing with the technology. You get that email on your mobile device. You get that almost instantaneously. So as soon as you walk out the store and you jump in your car, probably in about a couple minutes thereafter, you're getting that email on your mobile device saying, I've seen a purchase done on your debit card or credit card for $300. Did you do it? If you didn't do it, please call this number immediately. So these are some of the things in play right now to support persons in their mobile device journey, particularly those who are not native to mobile.
Yeah, I definitely can attest to being in a situation. I think it was actually last week, end of month. End of month traffic is pressure. So I was like, either I go and sit down in that traffic or just wait for a little bit. And I sat down in the mall and I just went through some payments I had to do on my banking app. And I just felt, we have this thing now where we want to be doing stuff all the time. So I was like, okay, I felt productive and waited out the traffic and was able to do this. So I definitely see the advantage of mobile banking. So, and you mentioned the apps as the alerts as well via emails, because a lot of people actually don't know that that's a feature, which is basically, you can get an email every single time you are doing a transaction in a specific card. Can you give us two more advantages of using the banking app?
Sure. Using the banking app as well allows you to do basically your banking at any time, anywhere, 24/7. During the pandemic, Pauline, I was away for a bit, right? And I was able to pay my bills back home, pay my credit cards, transfer funds for persons to see about my pets, um, all from mobile banking, right? So the mobile banking allows you to do your banking very conveniently at any time you want. 2 a.m. in the morning, 2 p.m. in the afternoon. You could be in Australia or you could be in Arima, right? It doesn't matter. So that's one of the major advantages of the mobile banking. It really is that your banking now coming with you everywhere you are. Picture um, before mobile and the phones, you had your desktop. You couldn't carry your desktop everywhere with you. So you basically left the internet home. You left the whole world wide web experience home. And then when you came back home, you picked it up, right? Now with your mobile device, you are carrying the internet with you. You are carrying the world wide web with you everywhere. And so once you have your mobile device, by extension, you are carrying your bank with you everywhere, 24/7. So that's number one. I would say number two is the whole portability of it, that you can access it anywhere, anytime, and it's being able to do so safely as well, right? So these are very high end features that are continuously being improved by the banks, and even the app stores require updates to the apps, etc. So there's a constant, dance between the app developer and these apps, so ensuring that the apps are accessible on the latest devices and are safe. So in terms of mobile banking benefits and advantages, they are numerous. It's portable, it's safe, always open, always on, 24/7. Once you have internet um, or even data and a smartphone, you can have your mobile banking done. And mobile banking allows you to engage and to function a bit more than you would do with your desktop.
Thanks for that, Kwame. I actually have a question about the data side of it, because I can imagine access to the internet can be considered a privilege to a lot of people, but also people tend to say, okay, don't do these things on public Wi-Fi areas. So I want to touch on that, but we're going to go on a break, so we'll be right back. And welcome back to Straight Off the Bat, a show that covers the need to revive, survive, and adapt to new normal of COVID-19. Join us on Thursdays as we speak to individuals across multiple industries who will help you understand financial literacy and education. If you're joining us from YouTube, don't forget to follow, like, subscribe to continue seeing content that will help you manage your money. Today, we are discussing mobile banking versus digital banking in Trinidad and Tobago. And for some, digital and online banking may be the same, but don't worry, stick with us. There's much to learn today. We have the privilege of speaking with Kwame. He is from Republic Bank Limited, the senior manager of group marketing and communications. So let's bring him back in. We were just before the break discussing internet, because a lot of us may have smartphones, but a lot of us actually may not have data all the time. So I know throughout the years, when you look back at what data used to cost versus what it is now, it is a stark difference. I mean, I don't know, Kwame, you could share what back in the day 1 gigabyte used to cost for the youths and them who don't know.
Yeah, it really was a lot. Data now is cheap. You may have been paying like 500-600 TT now for the same equivalent you would have been paying for. And even when mobile devices were first introduced into the market, you paid for calls, for receiving calls, right? So we have come a long way in the mobile industry and the mobile penetration and usage in Trinidad and Tobago, Pauline, indeed.
It's funny that you say that because I completely forgot. Because the idea of receiving calls and paying for it is one of the reasons why a lot of people had two phones. So you wanted to make sure that Digicel are calling them. Don't call my people be mobile number because Digicel and so forth. And now when you see, like for instance, the Telecommunication Association of Trinidad and Tobago shows that there are more phones than there are people in Trinidad and Tobago. So we do have mobiles and we do have access to this wealth of information online. But when it comes to accessing mobile banking, what would you say for those who may like, I don't want to waste my data on this?
Yeah, and it really is a personal choice, right? But you could only access your mobile banking, unfortunately, through data or Wi-Fi or through your internet. And some persons like Wi-Fi and the free Wi-Fi. We haven't had much um, experiences locally of your Wi-Fi service being hacked, but generally in some other jurisdictions globally, persons tend to shy away from public Wi-Fi for certain type of transactions. For surfing the web and going on social media, fine, but for doing certain type of financial transactions, persons prefer to use their data or their own Wi-Fi at their own home, but not public Wi-Fi at a mall or at a transit station or a subway station, etc. Right? Because of some instances of it may be a fake Wi-Fi attempting to pull data from your phone, meaning information about you and your finances. But generally, for those who want to use their data for their mobile banking, by all means, it can be done. But persons generally, Pauline, is almost like, and you can't really fault them, right? It's what the purpose of the device and the platform is. They will use their data for social media, but not use their data for their own financing, financial know-how and mobile banking. They wouldn't do it for that, but they would use it for social media, and that's fine. But you can use data and Wi-Fi to access your mobile banking.
All right, so this is a judgment-free zone, guys. This is entirely your choice. But for the purpose of us understanding how the adoption of digital banking and mobile banking has been, can you say that there has been an increase of people utilizing it over the last 2 to 3 years?
Oh yes, definitely, and certainly the pandemic would have been the big fillip that all the banks would have experienced, where because of the restrictions and being home, but still being needed to pay bills and to conduct certain financial transactions, persons and even companies started to apply for online banking, and then we saw as a result an increase in registrations for online banking, and by extension mobile banking adoption and usage also increased. So there was a significant increase during the last 2.5 years or so, and to a certain extent that trend is still continuing. Notwithstanding, it probably would have abated a bit, but there's still a healthy, um, demand for and persons signing up for internet banking. I guess the overall convenience, number one, and then interaction. Persons for the last 2.5 years got accustomed to really just doing the essentials and not necessarily coming into the bank for mundane, routine transactions. And if those transactions could really be done elsewhere safely, saves me time and money. Perhaps I don't have to travel. I don't have to pay for a car park to go into the to town to to get to the mall to get to the bank. Sorry, um, they would have then realized that they can do these things on internet banking as well, or even some of the electronic banking services that the banks have, ATMs, etc. So no longer coming into the bank to deposit a check, but depositing that check at the ATM and seeing that check deposited into your account, online banking, and then waiting for the check to clear, and then on internet banking transferring funds, paying your bills, paying your gardener or the caretaker or the babysitter, as the case may be. So we have seen more and more of that, and I think mainly it was attributable to the pandemic, and it has continued somewhat thereafter.
Would you be able to sort of, I guess, give a general idea as to what may have been the biggest hurdle that folks would have encountered for adopting digital banking? What was the biggest factor to say, I'm not going to try that?
Yeah, persons were a bit skeptical, all right, about the safety of it, and I think also it was a familiarity issue, right? They weren't too familiar with internet banking, and are you sure the utility is going to be paid? Are you sure they are going to get the money? But if you go to a teller and you pay the utility, you feel confident that the utility is going to be paid because some human on the other end did the transaction, and you also have a physical receipt to show that you did go to the bank, so that if God forbid your power is disconnected, you can show the technician that, hey, I paid my bill. But persons now moving to that digital world didn't have that confidence. So that's number one. A familiarity slash trust generally tends to be the reason why adoption is a bit low for some of these new technologies. And then another one would be what they are hearing outside from their friends, and well, don't do that. My cousin did that, and then his card was compromised, or the utility was never paid, and they don't want to take that chance, right? So a lot of rumors and fake news at times that tend not to be true, or some one-off scenarios that are very, very a flash in the pan and not really indicative of general transactions. These things tend to get the highlight and tends to be in people's minds, right, around the confidence used in these items, in these technologies. So basically, those are some of the initial bugbear. Um, it's not necessarily they don't have the hardware, they don't have the phone, because mobile penetration in Trinidad is very high, and even smartphone penetration as well. Majority of the mobile phones are smartphones. So I think it's not necessarily, well, I don't have the device. It's really more of a familiarity and a trusting of the technology, and even a know-how for some. Some persons don't know that their banks have mobile banking, surprisingly. You will be surprised. Yes, some persons just don't know.
It's interesting that you say that because I just came off of doing something that as I'm about to share with you, I can imagine everybody watching this going, "Oh my gosh, she's crazy." So I did the New York triathlon, which meant jumping in the Hudson River. And what I find interesting is the visceral response from everybody, because it's one of, "Oh my gosh, mafia, dead bodies, all these things." And it really has to do with, because a lot of people haven't actually been in New York, or understand the entire, because there's an entire group that puts together this event and they test the waters and so forth. But in the context of this discussion, a lot of times people have opinions that are based on a headline they read, not even necessarily
Mm-hmm.
a book or movie or just a headline.
Yeah.
So I see that in translating in the adoption of technology. And yes, guys, I'm still living. I don't have multiple things on my body. I'm still inhaling and exhaling. So It's fine. Don't worry. You can download the bank app. You will be fine.
Correct. You
Right?
will be
So,
fine.
so
Another
in it,
thing there, Paulie,
uh-huh.
sorry,
That's
is
okay.
that some persons in downloading the app, sometimes your phone asks you to, it will automatically update. Some persons are so averse to technology, right, that will I have to do something again? Will I have to update? My bank is always there. My physical branch is always there. It's not moving. Do ask me to refresh the branch, right? The door is always the same today, tomorrow, next year. But with this app, it's always asking me to do something. And these are some of the things that persons, kind of shy away from. And to be truthful, the app is not always asking you to do something. Some of these updates for the apps really are some bugs that are fixing and some new features that are being added, right? So, for example, before the public bank app, you didn't have the ability to put your email to confirm, and then an update was there, and then you had your email to add as a field. So there are constant updates at times, right, where the app is updated and there's nothing for the customer to do, right? When the app is updated, that these new features and benefits are now embedded in the app that the person can benefit from. So there are times that WhatsApp is upgraded, but you don't have to do anything again to WhatsApp or even Instagram. So it's the same with your bank app. The apps are now trying to be as much self-serve as possible, that the person doesn't have to do anything, and that the app, once it gets new features, is updated, sorry, and persons now can enjoy the new features and benefits on the app without doing anything themselves other than the initial download.
Awesome. And we always get gems with you, Kwame. Refresh your branch. I feel like that should be a tagline for some future campaigns. I really think that you need to add that to the mix. And for those who out there who have been on Facebook for a while, remember when your newsfeed used to look different and everybody's like, this is ridiculous. I'm leaving Facebook. And a lot of us are still there. So, things evolve, and with technology, it feels like it's pretty quick, but it's for specific reasons. A lot of times, for instance, it could be the fact that images take too long to load, so they'll change a color, they'll change the image, as well as the cybersecurity side of things. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go on a quick break, and when we come back, we'll have the discussion about mobile banking versus digital banking. We'll be right back. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the live series Straight Off the Bat, a show that covers the need to revive, survive, and adapt to the new normal. Join us on Thursdays as we speak to individuals across multiple industries who will help you understand financial literacy and education. If you're joining us from LinkedIn, don't forget to like and follow our page to continue seeing content that will help you manage your money. Today, we're discussing mobile versus digital banking in Trinidad and Tobago with Kwame Blanchfield. We're bringing back in. He is the Senior Manager, Group Marketing and Communications Manager at Republic Bank. And we're having this discussion because, convenience, guys. We don't have any time to do just about anything. I mean, besides Instagram and Facebook and TikTok, but still, no judgment, guys. No judgment. So when it comes to the mobile banking side of things, we discuss, mobile versus digital, what's the difference? But let's talk about devices, because I was watching this brand documentary, and a lot of people feel a sense of identity when it comes to the iPhone versus Android. There's actually a study that shows when you are on a Mac laptop, you feel more creative versus another platform. So, when it comes to adopting mobile banking, do you see one person adopting it quicker than the next?
I mean, one person, in terms of a segment. or
Yes, because I want to have that controversial Apple versus Android conversation.
yeah. So in terms of segments, mobile banking naturally the younger persons are gravitating towards mobile banking because a couple of things. They are born in this digital era, so they are digital natives. So they want everything online. They want that type of experience. They only want to interact with a brick and mortar if they really have to. So they tend to be a bit more on mobile banking. The split between the devices tend to differ. I myself have two, Samsung and an Apple iPhone. One is personal, one is work. But the level of restrictions or even permissions differ between the two. So there's a football app that I have that could only be downloaded on the Androids, on the Samsungs, but not on the iOS platform, which is Apple, right? And so these are some of the reasons why some persons may gravitate to one brand over the other. Apple tends to have a kind of a leading edge in Trinidad and Tobago, but I would say Samsung is not far behind. And based on the screens and the technologies and the marketing, they are very much on par. It really is one person's preference. iPhone is best or better known for their security, so persons may be gravitating a bit more to iPhones because of the whole antivirus measures they have in place compared to the other phones. But the other phones are not that backward neither. They are very strong in their whole virus protection. So I would say the younger folks generally may be the ones gravitating towards mobile. That's not to say that the older folks aren't. Which brand between those segments, I think is really a toss up because I have seen young folks with Samsungs, right, as well as iPhones. I think more or less it's the screen size now that plays a bigger part, Pauline, than anything else from before, because you want to download and watch movies and FaceTime or even have video calls. So the screen time and what I've seen as well played a lot of sway or hold a lot of sway in person's decision is battery life, surprisingly. Yeah, so screen time and battery life seem to be driving the decision. And at least the two major phone manufacturers are looking at that as a competitive advantage, But I would think younger people towards the mobile, but I have seen where they are really split down the middle between the two major brands.
That is some really good information. I was raising my hand when you say young people don't want to go into the don't want brick and mortar and don't want to have to actually engage. I was like, oh, I'm young people. Um and I also want to add on to the fact that the idea of Apple being more secure, there is some research that shows a book called Swipe to Unlock, actually written by some product managers from across Facebook, Google, and Amazon. And they said it really has to do with numbers. So if you want to do a mass cybersecurity, sort of try to hack into to a specific set of individuals, you're going to go to the one that has the more devices, and that's usually the Microsoft or the Android. So that's very interesting information in terms of adapting and adopting technology, because we also want to be able to learn from each other, understand what are the ups and downs with technology. And definitely the battery life is something I think when it comes to creating these mobile apps for banking, what is the number one priority with ensuring the user is adopting the apps?
Safety, safety, and authentication. Because if you get those fundamentals wrong, you lose the customer forever. You lose the confidence in your brand, and you lose the confidence in them being able to adopt digital technology, not only your own mobile banking, but they will now become very fearful, very gun shy, as it will, about anything digital. Yeah. So we want to ensure that when you do a transaction, that the transaction is accurate, that your information is stored safely and securely, and more importantly, you feel that it is you who are doing the transaction, you are authenticated, right? That you feel satisfied with the measures the banks or the bank has put in place to identify that it is Pauline who is logging onto this device and now accessing internet banking. So we pay a big importance on that. And I would dare say physical checks are done at even vendors who provide certain services for the banks. Physical checks are done at their main sites and backup sites to ensure that the integrity of what they do meet the criteria of the bank.
And in the thread of safety, let's talk about compatibility because everybody has this theory that every time Apple releases a new iOS, their whole phone just drops down because it's like time to buy a new device, right? And a lot of times they're like, Obama's security people are like, hey, you need to stop using BBMs. And they're like, no, I want to hold on to this. And that was a security decision. So when it comes to compatibility and folks who may have old phones, they're like, well, this is ridiculous. I want to use this phone. What say you to that person? Because they want to be able to use the apps, but their phone is not allowing them to access the banking app.
Yeah. So there'll be a certain time where the the compatibility between the hardware and the software, there's a gulf, there's a gap. And when that gap becomes too wide, a new phone is required, a new hardware. So you get a new phone today. That's called the hardware. You download your internet banking on it. That's fine. That's the application. iOS updates the software on the phone. So you have three things. You have the hardware, the phone, you have the software on the phone, and you have the app that is on your phone as well. Apple updates their software. So in 2022, you have a phone, and let's just say now you're like me, you tend to take care of your phones well, you try not to drop them as much. And 5 years later, you still have that same phone you bought in 2022. So we're in 2027. But guess what? In 2027, there may have been 10 upgrades to your phone software, which your existing physical phone can handle. And there would have been upgrades on your internet banking, the app, which your existing 2022 phone that is now in 2027 can handle. But guess what? In 2030, which is 8 years later, your phone may no longer be compatible with some of the later updates that are coming both from your internet banking and from the phone manufacturer itself. So there will be a requirement to upgrade your phone, or sometimes you will hear that this upgrade could no longer be allowed on devices iOS 5 and before older. So there tends to be a cutoff period eventually of when support will be provided or when the app will be able to work fully on an older phone as opposed to a newer phone. So generally, your phone is like a mini computer these days, and I would say 7 to 10 years is a good indication of when someone may need to look at replacing their handset. A good indication is if your phone's functions are no longer able to do some of the newer things the app is allowing persons to do. So, for example, your friend may be able to do I don't know, send multiple messages to various persons using one type of screen, or one message being sent to 5 people. Your phone can't do that. It could only send one message to 2 people. But your friend next to you is able to do one message to 5 persons. That's because your phone is not as new as his, and the software and the hardware is not that compatible. So you'll still be able to make a call. It's just that your phone will not be able to function as efficiently as the other phones of your friends. So think of it as the same car. same hardware, right? But the car has been updated, the engine has been updated, right? And because the engine has been updated, it has now come chock full with of electronics. But not all of the components in your car could interpret those electronics nor display those electronics. So what you have is just temperature gauge, oil gauge, fuel gauge, and your speedometer. You have four gauges, but you have a new engine that is very computerized in your older body car. You take that same engine and put it in a newer body car, and you're able to get a bunch of other now information that you weren't able to get. You're now getting tire pressure, you're getting speedometer, you're getting the ambient temperature outside, you're getting the temperature display inside in your vehicle, right? Because you now have a newer car with a newer engine, as opposed to a new engine on an old car. So it's a similar concept with your phone, where if your application and the software is being upgraded, but the hardware itself, the phone itself, is still a older phone, sooner or later you're going to have challenges just using the phone every day. Certain functions will take longer to do than others, and that's when you realize, hey, I better change my phone.
And I think it's so important for us to understand the devices that we're using. I know a lot of times use it for entertainment, but it comes with some responsibility. So, guys, pay attention. So, when it comes to, we've been talking about the mobile, but let's shift over to the digital space, which requires us to, I mean, a lot of us use laptops, or surprisingly, some people still have CPU units. Most recently in June, Microsoft announced the end of Internet Explorer, which is something a lot of us still use, surprisingly. I know a lot of people, the more famous and the popular one is Google Chrome. But the browser where we type in that HTTPS, initially when you bought that laptop, by default, Internet Explorer was there. So end of support happened in June, as well as Windows 7, which is the operating system. When it comes to the user and accessing their banking information on these devices, how important is it for the person to understand that this actually affects how they interact with their finances on the internet?
Yeah, and that's a good question as well. A lot of persons don't even know that there are other browsers, right? And I think that was a good ploy by Microsoft, and that's why it's coming to an end as well. They really enjoy that monopoly. But basically, it is something to know, and you find that some of the older folks, because again they're not that digital native, are not aware that perhaps my internet browser could be the reason why my internet banking is not downloading, right? It could only work on Firefox or Google Chrome, right? So the end of Internet Explorer doesn't mean the end of the internet, thankfully, right? There are other browsers that persons could download, and these other browsers actually have been compatible with the bank's internet banking. Um, Windows 7 not being supported anymore. Again, the responsibility is that I don't know if persons thought that the device will be forever, in their computer and would last forever. These things go out of support, or you need to update from a Windows 7 to a Windows 10 or to a Windows XP to whatever as the case may be. And so when you have a computer, you are required eventually to upgrade the software. Just as how you have a car, you are required at some time to change oil, right? If you want the car to continuously work. Well, that's what you're doing when you upgrade and you move from one service to another, Windows 7 to Windows 8 or Windows XP, or as the case may be. Or you actually changing the oil so you continuously have continued use of your computer. So for those who are on their life hanging on to Windows 7, I say, say goodbye to Windows 7 and get a new affiliation and affection for a new software. Download something from Microsoft. They will recommend it, the next edition you should move to. And for Internet Explorer, download Google Chrome and Firefox and some other browsers so that you are able to utilize other browsers for your internet banking and other online needs.
And for those who may be like, what is OS? It's basically operating system where you engage with um, basically the apps and the programs like Microsoft Word and your browser and so forth. So we have a couple more minutes, and I want to have a discussion around the prediction of the future of mobile and digital banking. Because when we look at a global perspective, it's become a norm to basically Venmo somebody something, for instance, in the States where you just split in the bill and you just share that one time, as well as being able to transfer funds from your bank to a company and not really worry about it. You just say, okay, let me just check this out. When it comes to Trinidad and Tobago, would you say, one of the biggest changes you foresee happening in the next 5 years?
In the next 5 years, I see more adoption of mobile banking and that exact same thing you're speaking about, funds transfer, but for various purposes, right? For the family and friends to conduct business transactions. I see a higher adoption of digital wallets. So soon your phone is really going to be that physical wallet where your credit cards will be stored on your phone and you will literally be tapping your phone to pay for items. I see that really as the next generation of payments in Trinidad, mainly because of a couple of factors. We have a high mobile penetration. We have a number of our merchants who already have point of sale terminals. And even if they want to enable Wi-Fi in their stores to facilitate a higher adoption of those type of transactions, they can. And then we have a very eager and willing and demanding younger public who are seeing these things not only on television but when they go away at university as well and they come back home, they are having that gulf in that experience, right? Where in America, in Canada, in Europe, they are seeing the adoption and the everyday use of these technologies, and when they come home, they are hardly seeing it, if at all. So I see that in the next 5 years as being very transformative in Trinidad and Tobago. And that's the direction in which I see the future of mobile and mobile payments going initially.
And in that same breath, because we had a discussion with Carlos Newton on the same live show. He works in the financial system services delivery at Trinidad and Tobago Financial Center. And we spoke about contactless payments. He actually shared some really interesting gems in terms of the penetration of individuals in Trinidad and Tobago with a bank account. So someone might be watching this and thinking this, there's this credit card versus debit card conversation. Like maybe this is not for me because I don't have a credit card. What say you when it comes to mobile banking in the debit space? Because a lot of people thinking, okay, it's credit. I could, kind of live my life willy nilly swiping my card versus if I have a debit, which is my cash, and I don't think I should do this.
Yeah.
What is your advice there?
So mobile banking and that mobile payment with that digital wallet is really that. It's payment. So it is not for the exclusive realm of credit cards. Has never been. It's just that it started off like that. But in the US and other developed markets, the number of contactless transactions or digital wallet transactions are with your debit cards, right? Because you have your debit cards loaded onto your wallet as well as your credit cards. So it can be your debit card transaction being used, just as how you would use your card physically, right? At the point of sale, your Links card that is now a Visa debit Links card. So basically, it is the same type of transaction being done, but just on your phone. So it's whether you still have a propensity to lean towards more credit card purchases or debit card purchases. It doesn't matter. Once it's on your mobile, you select the card and then you go ahead and you tap, and then that's it.
All right. And on that note, thank you so much, Kwame, for joining us today and sharing insight into mobile banking versus digital banking in Trinidad and Tobago. For everything that we discussed today in terms of referencing the previous shows, check the comments and you'll see the links there. You can also sign up to be notified about our next live show via the links in the comments. And as always, be sure to follow our page on Facebook if you don't want to miss a single live show. Thanks again for joining us and see you soon. Bye.